show you the other side that that you just saw. See how it's purple? And it's turned purple. You saw that turning purple as the time lapse was going on. But what I did is, before I treated it with the rust converter, this is the stuff I showed about in another video, CRC rust converter. It sprays on, you know, semi-clear, but then it turns purpley black when you treat steel with it. See, that was the repair I done before, and how it's black because I treated it so I didn't, you know, flash rust while I'm doing other things. It's gone purpley black. So that's primable, paintable surface. That's why I like this stuff. It's really good. But I had a suspicion that it worked on the other side, that I sprayed the whole panel down, just a light coat of this rust converter, and as I mixed the water with it, it's sort of diluted, but it still works the same. See how it's still got that purpley texture to it? I think it's treating everything that I've done with rust converter. So what I do now is let that sit for a bit, and then I'm just going to wipe it down now with the rag, and we'll see what it looks like underneath and see if it's flash rust or not. I just wanted to test it. So we'll give that a go. Well, you can see there, actually, so far I think it is working. Like I said, it's not flashed off or anything. I still missed a bit up under here. I've got to hit it again and treat all that other speckle stuff before I epoxy it, but just fascinating. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it is a little technique. I know that you can get like an additive you can put into media blasting when it's wet, so maybe that's not a bad idea too for anyone doing sanding through to bare metal and then wet sanding for whatever reason. Maybe we can get some additive for that. As far as I can find so far, all the rust that need to be repaired, it's been done. So we've got the two sections at the back, they're spot welded and rust converted, just so they're not going to rust for now. Both sides are done, so that's nice. A little section above it as well, either side of it being done next to the hinge. And both the pieces behind the front wheel have been repaired. So you got those two pieces in there on episode 2, and I've just done the exact same on this side, but a bit bigger, and it's been painted and stone guarded. It's pretty straight mostly, but now I've sanded it, you can see in the refraction of the light, I don't know if you can or not, but there's two right there, but there's just a lot of little stone things there. But we'll see those when we epoxy it too. Next is epoxy prime. Once I finish the sanding and whatnot, got to do all the doors and everything, but epoxy primer. And once that's cured, then we'll start blocking back with the hand block. So, which will be just like a 6-inch or 8-inch hand block. Block that back, and that will show up all the imperfections and dents, and then we can go back and either hammer and dolly them out, or we can, you know, if they're not reachable, we can just try to dent pull them or just skim coat them with bog. The more I work on these curves, and that's why I like mostly Fords, but older cars, because of the curve and the body lines, I'm falling in love with it. I am. So, but that's my real baby over there, so there's room for two. We'll see how it turns out. Get some use out of it, chuck it on the road. Beautiful. So a little tech tip is, I'm just going through the sanding process now still, and it's clogging up the paper. As you'll know, that when you're doing some sanding, especially old paint or gummy paint, it gums up the paper really quickly, and you're just forever going through paper and feels like it's costing you a fortune. So that's why a lot of people say wet sand. If you don't know what it is or how to do it or whatever, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to show you why it is handy. Yeah, it's messy, but you don't need to hose it on, but you just sprinkle it on with the Swerth bottle, or a little spray bottle or squirter or anything just to keep it moist. So I'm just showing even an electric sander, little Makita $100 sander. Obviously don't spray it into the sander itself, but spray it on the surface and just keep it moist. So I'm just going to do a dry sand now and then show you how quickly it'll gum up. Okay, that was about 40 seconds. See those little nibs on the pad? That's just gumming up. Like you can flake them off, and that's what stopped. Then they just hover on the surface instead of the sanding pad. So that's what you want to try to stop. So I'm going to use the same pad, and then just going to spritz down the top of this bonnet, and this pad will do the bonnet, the roof, half a panel before it deteriorates. So because it's not a proper wet pad, it'll just fluff out, and that's what I've been using on the roof. It just deteriorates, which where you can go to the ones I showed you yesterday, these hardier ones, not specifically for wet sanding either, but still like 20 cents each. Like I just buy mine in bulk on eBay. Just what's the brand name? Smith & Arrow. That's my sanding setup, all that stuff there. But anyway, this is to show you that you don't have to go and do all the crazy stuff. You can use what you got and water it down, and I'll set up the tripod and you'll see. So you can see, I didn't even clean those nibs off. There's still a couple on there. Ideally you start with a clean pad, but they don't form anymore because it stays wet. It sort of stays like, you imagine, clay sort of substance stays wet. It's not going to have the chance to get hot and then get stuck on the pad. So you see it's not that messy, and you can wipe that down with a rag now, and if you don't wipe it down, it just goes to a chalky paste. So this is a roof I just did. You can see how much material is actually coming off just with the wet sand. And it's not dusting up your shed. You can easily vacuum that off or wipe it off and put the rag in the bin. You can see, it works really well. So, if you already knew about wet sanding, sweet, but there's a lot of people that don't, and where it can become beneficial for them to do it, especially when you're doing clear coat, sanding your clear coat. Anyway, we're getting there. A few little pinholes to fix up and rust. It's along that gutter there. I've got the front and back windscreen out. I'm well and truly into the 10-hour region for this episode. So about 30 hours so far for this build. But going to tack a few on extra hours and for a bonus. Cleaning out this rear guard section. So this is the driver side. It's a bit of stuff in there until you realize how actually deep it is. That's the second one. You can see down there, it's clean, as in no rust, but it was level to there. It was just rock solid. So you can see that dint there, right here. I did see this on social media. Let's give it a go. Beautiful. Actually worked. Cool. Yeah, most of it's out. Shit, yeah. Good morning. I've been at it for a few hours now and actually looking pretty clean, which is pretty cool. I'm just about ready to tape up for epoxy primer. So I had to do some That didn't repair. It was oil canning really bad, so I just welded like a bracket on the inside there, just like a little C-channel bracket, just spot weld, so for some strength. And yeah, I just put the front wheels back on and I'm pretty sure she's just about due for a bushes, because I mean it's not bad, but it's, you see the other wheel's not even moving, that's all slack. So you don't want that when you're driving down the road. You will not have a good time. And I can see at the back here, this squeak is driving me nuts. It's literally just the shock play where the bushes are. So yeah, it definitely will need a full overhaul with bushes and rubbers. Like pitman arm there's pretty shonky as well, pretty munted. But we'll tape this up, and I could put it in the booth for the epoxy primer, but I'm not gonna. I won't do that until the final coat, or the base coat I should say. Just for primer, I'm just gonna slap it on and then start doing my body work. I'm not worried about contaminants on this coat. So let's get into it. Yeah, well, that's the first round of wax and grease remover. So I'll do that another 2 times. I'll start masking up and then spray on some epoxy. Alrighty, there we have it. Epoxy primer. Slightly over 10 hours. I think we're at about 13 to 15 hours on this episode. But there's a lot of small stuff, as I said, that had to be done. Just small bits and pieces. So now it's let this cure, and then I can start sanding and doing panel work. So this is epoxy primer. You can bog straight over top of this if you want. That's why I like to use it. And it's got really good, rust prevention properties. Slightly more expensive than other stuff, but yeah, PR 250 I think it's called, from Model. And yeah, so it's taking shape, looking quite nice actually. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As you can see, with this stuff it doesn't matter to do in the booth because you're going to be sanding the whole lot anyway. But once you do the primer sealer, and then from that point on, you can do it in the shed, and I'll give you some tips in the next episode if you're going to do it in the shed yourself, if you don't have a booth. So yeah, it's coming up quite nice. Smash that like button, subscribe if you like this content, support the channel, and hopefully by next episode we'll have this in blue. I do have a fair bit of hammer and dolling to do on the 2 guards. I forgot about them, so I'll endeavour to show you about panel correction, hammer and dolly, and paint and panel work next episode, so follow along for that. Thanks everyone, bye.